Okay, it's recording.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello, Joe.
Hello, Sonia. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Good to see you.
Good seeing you too.
We're
Here for
still
another exciting show of women
Yes.
creating wealth together. I'm so excited.
Yeah. And it's always good to see you. And I'm getting really used to seeing people in video screen because
On Zoom.
we're
especially.
in our coronavirus lockdown here. The entire
Yes.
country is, or the world, I should say, even.
Mhm. So it's
It's
getting
amazing
almost,
to me how quickly we get used to things like this.
yeah, because that's what's it been, 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
Yeah.
And we're already used to the Zoom. Of course, I do this a lot anyways, just because of the nature of my business, but it's becoming the norm now, right?
Right. And when I don't watch TV too much, but when I do watch like a movie scene or something and people are hugging or standing close to each other, you kind of cringe, right?
I know.
We've gotten so used to being socially distant already. I can't believe it.
No, I don't like it. I actually say it's socializing from a distance, just because I try to be on the positive side. But yeah, I mean, I was at the grocery store last week, and people were walking like way around me, and that's when it really hit me the hardest.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, that's right. We got to do this now, and
yeah, I obviously most of us go on walks a lot, and I realized you can't even touch other people's dogs because one, they don't like it, and two, I don't know, I guess they could transfer potentially. So because of touching, I don't think they could carry, but you never know that either. I guess we just don't know much.
I know, and that's really the sad part. But thankfully, we're able to get outside and go walking.
Yes, thank goodness. Yeah, I feel really bad for people.
I finally put my Fitbit on, so now I can keep track of like how many. Because now I'm like, all right, I'm into this now, so I can finally keep track of how many steps I do. So yeah.
Well, yeah, and interestingly, I'm learning so much by being in this environment because I'm realizing like really my curiosities just blossomed. I mean, there's so much first time ever for so many things happening. I mean, the bond market crisis and the credit market and what's going on with the SBA loans and what how people are behaving and the whole economic environment and how people are contributing to it, how we're going to, there's just no end to things to learn about the stock market, bond market. So I'm finding that I'm not as unhappy as I thought I would be.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm listening to a lot more CPAs, CFOs, those type of people that I haven't listened to in a long time. And to me, it's very intriguing. It's very I just want to soak up that information.
Yeah.
Absorb it, because these people have read this new CARES Act bill, a couple of times over. And I'm like, wow, first of all, congratulations. And secondly, I'm like, fill our minds with what's in there. Just because, and then, in the stock market and now with extra time on our hands, we have time to really delve into it. And I'm so glad you're not as unhappy as what you thought you would be.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember back to 2008, but I do. And
I remember.
Life was a whole lot different then. And thankfully we're at where we're at now.
Well, last week feels like 2008.
Yeah.
Both in terms of how long that feels like. Things are developing so rapidly, and we talked then, and of course every day is a different mentality for me, and I'm trying to keep it together. But one thing that's a really savior is just having curiosity and embracing this as a learning opportunity, which is what our talk and platform is all about. So hopefully this could help some people.
That's right. And that's why we created this, Women Creating Wealth Together. And little did we know when we created this that all this would happen. But this is also a great platform to, express our feelings and express how we're feeling about all of this.
Absolutely.
Along with helping other women and men, if they're in the same position, or to prepare themselves if this ever was to happen again.
Yeah.
So no more pandemics.
Yeah. I think I'm hearing that most experts have anticipated something like this. I don't know. I don't know if it's to the scale, and we are definitely most likely to have another. So it's
Yeah.
always good to prepare. And it's the Asian countries that are doing better because they learned from the last few pandemics, or maybe it wasn't pandemic because they suffered it. The Western countries didn't so much, but like the SARS or the swine flu and such, they've learned and put R&D into it, and now they're able to prepare for something like this better. Whereas and the Western countries are kind of a mess right now.
Yeah, because we're not. Normally if we get stuff like that, I don't know about you, but I'm just like, oh, okay, well, it happens. I pray for them, and then we move on.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like on my knees praying for all of us. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's getting real. My mom lives in an apartment complex, and they got a note on their door saying we no more visitors.
Oh,
And it's like,
that's
oh,
heartbreaking.
but I
No.
mean, I still get to go just because I have to help her and
Yeah.
deliver groceries and stuff. But
Yes, of course.
it's just like, oh my gosh, it's just
Yeah.
that's when it really hits home.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with that in mind, I thought a good topic would be, I mean, of course, as real estate investors and property owners, we're dealing with this a lot.
Mhm.
We're trying to talk with our tenants and work out their problems and see if they could see what rent they could afford to pay us, because everybody's economically impacted, and also trying to save ourselves from being too short on cash, because obviously we are going to have to pay our mortgages and taxes and payroll and all of that stuff too. So how to find and select your tenant,
That's
which
right. Which
sounds
is a
pretty
great show for
simple.
right now. That's right.
Yeah, it is. And we're going to talk about it in the normal context because I don't know how you do this right now. But let's say you have a couple of rental units or homes, or even rental multifamily. What is a good way to go about looking for your tenants? So we'll talk about that today.
Yeah. And, like you said, and I used to use Craigslist all the time. Now I haven't had to use it lately, but you said that's still a great way to advertise for tenants.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
before, I'm just going to tell you, like when I had my mini storage, I also used it to advertise storage wars. Which was kind of fun.
Yeah,
And
really fun.
we had people come from 10 and 12 hours away. They came from the Chicago area and then they actually won the storage war, which was pretty cool. So
Well,
it
you
was.
could have a show and conduct business at the same time.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a TV show called Storage Wars?
Yeah, there is. That's why I call it storage wars, because it was kind of fun. We had 3 or 4 different groups of people. There wasn't a lot of people there, but just, it was.
Yeah.
But Craigslist was a great way to advertise it.
Yeah, I think because you can be as local as you want to be, and then you could also expand your geographical location. So I think it's great for things that needs to be local, like finding an apartment, or if you want to, if you want to adopt a dog, or find, Craigslist. It's just a good local resource for a lot of people. And even in our student housing property, we had a lot of success advertising on Craigslist.
Yeah, interesting.
So,
Good.
yeah.
Good.
You do have to update it every few days. Otherwise, the way it works, your advertisement goes to the bottom every time something new comes up. So it pays off to be diligent and then renew it each time. If you have an account, though, it's really easy to update it. You just have to say renew, and just one click and it goes up top, it renews the advertisement. So
That's awesome.
It's free. It reaches a lot of people. It's easy. Take some good pictures and put it up there.
Yeah. Free is good too. And then when it reaches a lot of people, it's even better. So
yeah,
Craigslist is a great way to advertise.
Yeah. I also find that physical signage on the property is very helpful. And if you have like a multi-family property, just have that for lease sign up there all the time, even if you're full. You could always get some inquiries and have those people waiting
have a waiting list.
Yeah. And if you ever have a need for a tenant, then you could always reach out and have it's nice to have people that potentially could rent your units.
Yeah, and this one I like too, referrals from neighbors, tenants who used to live there. So when I was a property manager, and also on my units, that is like one of the best ways is referrals from other people.
Yes.
And when I was a property manager, the apartment complex, the 60-unit apartment complex I managed, we were always getting calls because we were a little bit cheaper in town, but we're also kept up the property really nice. So, and people bragged about that a lot.
Very nice.
Yeah. And
that's what you want.
Exactly. That's what you want. Referrals and bragging up. And I'll even tell you a story when I was moving. I lived out in Nevada and I was moving to Iowa, of all places. But this was way before the internet. Okay. So, and I even did a talk on this on the Multi-Housing Association. But I called the police station in the town where I was moving to. And I said, as a single mom, I want to move to this town. Where would you go? And they told me 2 or 3 different apartment complexes. And so I said, isn't that a great thing, is to have your police department recommend your apartment complex?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's another, just referrals
very nice.
From your city, anything like that, your chamber of commerce, anything like that is just so great.
Yeah. And depending on your area and what the common practice is, it might even be helpful to offer, what do you call that? When you like a referral fee,
referral bonus.
Yeah. I think I was the word I was looking for was bounty. Some places call it bounty.
A bounty,
which I don't know. That doesn't really make sense to me. But a referral fee, referral bonus or gift or something.
Yeah,
or give them $25 Starbucks or So.
Yeah, I think now a lot of it is Starbucks or grocery store or something like that.
Right. Yeah, it's really helpful. It builds good rapport. People like it, and you feel good too. So
absolutely
show a little appreciation. It's always helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so once you find a good tenant, and by the way, when you do have some showings for your properties, depending on obviously how big the demand is, you could be spending a lot of time showing it to each person. And actually there's, I guess we could talk about that process. Well, let's talk about this first. So we talked about advertising. I was gonna say open house, advertising an open house, it could be a good way to save yourself some time because rather than showing it to 5 different people 5 times, you could say, okay, on Saturday from 12 to 3, we're going to show it to people. So that's a really good way to show and save yourself some time. And guess what? If a lot of people show up once, it creates a little bit of competition too.
It does. And I love that. I love doing an open house for an opening that we have.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Do have them bring an application with maybe all the things you want to see, like credit report and background check if they have it. And then this is important. I learned this from a long time ago from a night class I took on property management. But have them bring a small application fee, like $20-$25. It's not very much money, but it ensures that they're committed. It's a small amount of money, but they're serious. Yeah. And if they get accepted, they'll more likely move forward with you.
Yeah. That's the best, I think, is have that application fee, because then you know who's serious and who's not.
Exactly. Yeah. And you don't want to waste your time if they're not serious about it.
Right.
So I'm going to go back because we should talk about how to do vetting for your tenants. Credit and background check. Pretty important. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like major important. Because trust me, they'll tell you lies. Well, I've had people tell me lies about their credit, and then I went and did credit check. I'm like, come on. But yeah, and then the background, the one that when I was a property manager, and I'm still to this day, I do not take any criminal, anything more than a misdemeanor, I don't even mess with. So
yeah. I mean, I struggle with it, but I when I used to go out and meet each tenant, especially when you have houses, I could see myself making exceptions. I've had many bad credit tenants, and they would tell me their story, and I understand things happen, life happens. And so I've made many exceptions if I knew that they had a good job and income source and they seem like good people. And I kind of, you got kind of go by your gut feel. The crime thing is pretty important. But again, I personally tend to make exceptions, and if there's a story behind it, verify it, trust, but verify. But it is really important to know the whole story. So you got to absolutely go verify.
to me, it's more important if they're upfront with me in the beginning.
Absolutely.
If they're not, and then I find out at the end, then I'm not as trusting. If they tell me up front, because, you know, back in my early life, in my 20s and stuff, if I would go rent a place, I was just honest with them. I said, look, I'm divorced, you know, I don't have the best credit right now, but I'm building it back up, whatever the case may be. If people are honest,
yeah,
and I'm definitely more likely to give that break to them. If they're not honest, then it's like, forget it.
Well, it's like they're proving themselves to be bad people.
Exactly. Exactly.
So yes, that's why you need to verify. And job and income verification, of course, very important. So what do you guys do over there? Like how much income or income level do you feel comfortable with?
You know, for income, I'll be honest with you, 20,000 and above. I mean, because our incomes here can be lower.
Yeah.
But for the rate, depending on what the rate is of the place you're renting.
Right, of course. Yeah.
So if it's a 60-unit apartment complex, I'm gonna go lower than if it's, you know, my $200,000, $250,000 house, then of course I want their income to be higher. So then it's, you know,
so like how much of the rent of you don't want their rent to be more than 50% of their
That's right. More than 50% of their income. That's right. Yep.
Because they're going to have other expenses like food and gas and auto, you know, a lot of that kind of stuff.
A lot of daycare, car payments, those type of things. So yeah.
But again, you know, it's really expensive out here in California. So we tend to also look at other sources of income or maybe potential increase in income. It's a little difficult to put a hard line on what percentages what you should look for, but I think generally you don't want it to be more than 40-50% of your income. Then I would probably feel
I would say 50 is stretching it.
Yeah. Previous landlord, you want some reference from the previous landlord. And I know that this can't always come by because obviously they might not be able to tell their current landlord that they're looking for something else, someplace else to go. So it's not something you can always get, but sometimes people move around, they have to geographically change their location. And so they do have this. And when I can talk to the previous landlord, I think it's a great resource. Just to pick up a phone and say, hey, so-and-so is applying. I know she was your tenant. Do you have any reference points, or is he a good tenant? And you can get a lot of information.
Yeah, you can. And you got to approach it the right way too, because some of them are pretty, I'll say they're not willing to give as much information sometimes because they don't, you know, because they don't want to get in trouble either. But a lot of times you kind of also build a rapport. Well, in my area, because we get to know all the other ones. And so you kind of get to build a rapport with them too. But you know the good and the bad. If they're a little iffy about telling you anything, sometimes you know.
Yeah, or like, you know, exactly. Or if you can't get the landlord, get a reference from their boss or friends and anything. I mean, you know,
they can write a letter. They can give you a call. You can call them. Whatever the
email.
Case may be.
Just something. Obviously, the more background check, the better it is. And again, if you have a 4-bedroom house with a substantial amount of rent, and there's a family that's coming in that's likely to stay for a while, you wanna make sure they're good tenants.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a little bit different than if you have, you know, 8 units full of studios and people are gonna constantly go in and out than say a 4-bedroom house. So I think it's really important to do the background check.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the background check is the most important, to be honest with you.
It is. Yeah, because you get one bad tenant in there, especially if you have a single house rental and you're fighting with them constantly, or you can't get them out and they need to leave, or they damage, or any of potential things that could happen. I mean, your income's gonna suck for a long time.
So on my radio show, I'll just tell you, I interviewed an attorney out of Denver, and he's also a landlord. And he said a really good way to get people out, and maybe you've done this, But a really good way to get a
I'm
problem
scared
tenant,
to hear what, hear what you had to say.
to get a problem tenant out,
Uh,
offer them that if they leave the place clean, that you either forego the last month's rent or you give them the deposit back or something, just to give them that monetary incentive to leave the place clean.
Yeah, that's a
and
good
no
one.
damage,
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
and then even though you might be losing for a month or two, at least you don't have $10,000 worth of damage or 5,000, whatever the case.
Exactly.
So I said, well,
Yeah,
now that's thinking proactive, even though you
definitely.
might not think that way at first, but it really is being proactive, because you really don't want that problem. And
No.
I've actually did that before, because I was going to have to get the sheriff involved to remove some people from a property. And I said, look, and money was a problem because they couldn't afford to go somewhere else. And I said, look, I'm going to give you your deposit back. Just make sure the place is clean. And then they said, well, how about an extra $100 on top of it? I said, fine.
Yeah. Give them the $100. I mean,
give them $100, plus $500 deposit. I'm fine with that.
Get them out. You need to get it
That's right.
clean and rented. You're not going to
That's right.
forego so that you're arguing back and forth about 100. So
Yeah, exactly. And it's just easier, and then they're done.
And very important, you said, you hit the nail on the head, is proactive.
Yep.
It is very important. Otherwise things drag out. You're gonna lose it. You're gonna lose a lot of money during that process. So
and energy. It's also energy depleting.
Oh yes.
It's
such an energy sucker.
It is. And then you don't have time to do other proactive things for your business. You're sitting there constantly worried about that. Whereas
that's right.
You're fighting over an extra $100, who cares?
And then like this bad thing hanging over your head, and your brain is cluttered with emotion, and you can't think. And no.
Yeah, and I remember I was already down at the sheriff's office. I'd already filed the paperwork. I mean, and that's actually the very first time I had to do that. And only a couple other times have I had to threaten that, but then we worked it out and it was good. So.
Yeah, and then energy is very important. You want to do problem solve and then move forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so many ways. If you just have a good report and just talk it out and find a solution, it could work out better for everybody.
Absolutely. And there's usually a reason why what's happening. Either they've lost their job, they're between jobs, family issue, a health issue. I mean, there's some reason why.
Yeah.
If by chance they, are falling behind.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And most people are going to be reasonable. I do admit I've seen a few bad apples throughout my career, but most people, generally.
I would say 90, in my experience, 96%, 97% are going to be very reasonable.
Yeah.
You just don't have any problems with them.
Yeah. Be careful of those bad, rotten apples, though.
And don't let them suck the energy right out of you.
That's right. That's why I hate them the most. They're just energy suckers. So
digging into that, Section 8 tenants.
Section 8 tenants. It's unfortunate timing for that topic. I actually like Section 8 tenants. I think they're great because you get your income in your bank account automatically every first of the month. And most of them are very responsible people that just happen to get government help. And I don't know, I've had good experiences with them.
And I have too, and they know when they have to go fill out their paperwork. And then they've always been really good about giving me their paperwork if I have to have it on file, which I usually do once a year. And then it's just, I have not had any problems with Section 8 tenants.
Yeah. You do have to do a little more work to the units because there is an annual inspection from the government. But there are things that you should do anyway, and it's not unreasonable. So gut feel, communication style, all of that, pretty important. And we're good at that. We're women, so trust yourself.
That gut instinct tells more than I'll ever even know up here.
I know. Only if I could go back and redo those incidents when I had a gut feel and went against it. Those are the times that I met those energy sucking bad apples.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So, trust your gut feel. Let's see. Oh, okay. We talked about advertising and all of that stuff.
Open house,
you always have a lease, written lease, and written communications when you can.
Now, let me ask you, Sonia, do you do online leases now through DocuSign and all those?
Yeah, we do a lot of that. Just depends on who your tenant base is. A
Sure.
lot of some of our tenants still, they're
Right.
not savvy
Right.
online,
That's right.
so they do that. All our our university student housing, people like that, young people that are in San Francisco, yeah, it's all online.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't ever see them face to face.
Yeah.
So,
And it's really that, and that's also a time saver.
oh
Because if you
yeah,
can just, and you don't have to go see them face to face, you just email it over, tell them to get it signed within however long, and then get it back. It's a
yeah,
time saver. It's wonderful.
yeah. Some of the properties that I've owned, it's it's actually so easy. Online platforms make it so easy
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, you almost don't need a property manager. You don't need
Right.
a property manager because things are so automated. I'm talking, of course, the smaller properties.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a big one, you definitely need somebody on site
Mm-hmm.
and such. But yeah, I find that a lot of professionals barely have to discuss anything with them. You just coordinate repairs and things like that. So
Yeah.
um, that makes it really simple. But you do need to record you have to have a written lease and what move in, move out checklist. I mean, this is something you should do face to face because when they first come in, you should kind of walk around with them. Okay, there's damage here, there's damage there,
Take
or
pictures.
otherwise it's clean. Yeah, take
Yeah. Take
pictures.
pictures. I always took pictures and kept them in the file
Yep.
for when
Yep.
they moved in, and then also when they moved out.
Yeah, that way when they're moving out and they said, oh, this broken window was always there, and you're like, oh, I don't think so. You didn't say anything there, and your signature's here. So
Yep.
that makes those potential energy sucking moments much less painful.
That's right.
Okay, so I like talking to my tenants when I like them, and so since we're going to find good tenants, it's
Mm-hmm.
always good to have good rapport, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you text your tenants, or do you just send them letters, or how do you communicate with them?
Yeah, I do a lot of texting with them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I have to pick up a phone call. Usually when there's a complaint or an argument, um, I have to pick up a phone call and talk to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Me
Like
too.
right now one of the reasons why we're so swamped is because we're in the coronavirus crisis and we have to do a lot of work out with our tenants who are
Yeah.
trying to get out of their lease or not pay rent. And so there's a lot of communication right now.
Oh yeah.
And in
Sure.
these times, a phone call, face-to-face phone call, it really is the best way. Of course, we can't do face-to-face unless on video, but
Right.
yeah, a phone call is good.
It is, and then they almost feel better when they're talking to you as
Yeah,
the property owner. They really, that's
yeah.
what I have found, and I feel better when I'm talking to them as well.
Well,
So,
only the biggest complaints come to me
oh yeah,
nowadays. We gotta bring our property manager Liz on here. She's done such a great job with one of her properties. It's a big 140 unit student housing that I keep talking about.
oh yes, we need to bring her
Um,
on here
yeah,
for
she
sure.
came. She had no experience, and I was pulling my hair out because I couldn't find a good property manager, and she was the wife of our maintenance manager, and I said,
Hmm.
why don't you try it? You know this building, you know the people here. And so that's how she got started, and she does great communication with the tenants. Awesome
That's
job.
great.
Yeah, so we'll have to bring her here and talk
Yeah,
about some of
absolutely.
these things in detail.
That would be, especially since she's right in, as I say, the front lines of it all.
Yeah,
So, and she's doing it, actively. So yeah, definitely, I'd love to bring her
absolutely.
on.
Yeah, so she does a lot of the difficult, good, bad, ugly, all the communications first, and then only when people are being really unreasonable and it's one of those, I want to talk to your supervisors. Then
Hmm.
I have to okay, fine, I'll talk to them. But she handles it a lot for me.
Uh-huh. We get those, don't we? We're just like, oh, okay.
Yes, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Um, Rent increases are a tough issue for a lot of property owners to deal with because I think people get really shy asking for more money, right? Especially when you have a single residential home or maybe a
Hmm.
small duplex or something like that. So how do you ask for rent increases? Do you just announce it to your tenants or?
Yep. So unfortunately, and I should just do it at the beginning of every year, but what I do is at their year mark, I increase it by $10, which isn't a lot, but it just, and I tell them when they rent, I said, okay, well, I just want you to know that, yearly we raise the rent. And so
Yep.
I haven't had any problems with it at all.
Yeah.
It's
So
just $10 and it's like, so it's a
a
small
little,
enough
yeah.
increase that,
Yeah.
but then if they move out and somebody else moves in, depending on how old the apartment or whatever, or their rent in the area is, I might increase it even more when the next person moves
Yeah.
in. So
Yeah. It depends on the market,
yeah, it
obviously.
depends on the market. Yeah.
Yeah. And the percentage of how much you raise will also depend on the market, what the demand is around the area. I mean, I do a rent check every year to see what the market rate is, and everybody should. There's no reason to leave money on the table. But if you have a really good tenant, they've been there for a long time, it's not worth it to fight over a few dollars because they're going to stay there, take care of it, and it's worth a whole lot of savings to keep a little bit of lower rent for their benefit.
Absolutely.
Especially if they're going to look for another place and move out. I mean, you want to minimize that move out. Because every time somebody moves out, not only are you going to lose at least a month or two of rent, you got to do the whole carpet change, paint the place. And so it's a big money sucker. We're using that word a lot today.
Yeah, we are. That word sucker. And that's why it is. So if you can, if you have to decrease the rent a little bit or maybe not give them a rent increase, just to keep them satisfied, it is so much better to have that renter in there as long as they're happy and they're not going to be an energy sucker. But it is.
No, we can't avoid using the word. I think it's because it's like shelter in place is so sucky right now. So that word is in my mind. Yes. So let's see. All right. That's it for now.
Gosh, we covered a lot in this one.
I hope so. I think it's important to find a good tenant.
Well, tenants, are what's going to pay your bills for you. So finding that right tenant, and we talked a lot. I almost feel like we almost talked about the bad ones, but seriously, like, I don't know what your percentage of good ones are, but I mean, mine's 96, 97% are good ones.
Oh, totally.
Depending on where you're at, what kind of clientele. Sometimes it's cyclical. Sometimes I could seem like I get some bad ones and then I get them out and get good ones in, and I could be good for a year or two. So,
yeah, totally. I mean, good tenants are so rewarding, and you're right. Most of them are good tenants.
Yeah.
I'm
friends with a lot of my tenants.
Yes. Yes.
Which
I did a meditation led by one of my commercial tenants this morning.
Yay!
I happened to join because we're trying to work out their rent because her business is a Chinese medicine, and she can't open her business right now. It's a lot of physical contact, and so we're working things out, and we had a really good discussion. I trust her. She's been my tenant for a long time, and I know her business otherwise does really well. And she, of course, is willing to work out as much as she can with me. We're exchanging information. I'm giving her information about loans she could apply for, and then and I even joined her meditation group that she's just started online because she's obviously can't do any business right now. So yes, good tenants are very rewarding.
They are. And like I said, you can be friends with them, but you can also trust them. And you can also trust them to keep an eye on the property.
Yes.
Because good tenants will keep a really good eye on your property for you, and they'll let you know if anything's going on. So
yeah, totally.
They're like the police detective of the property. And I like that because we can't always be there in front of that property. So if you have good tenants, they're going to keep a good eye on them.
Yeah. And then, like, you're totally right. They do little things for you, and it's such a time saver. So. Well, I think we should have another discussion on commercial tenants because that's a whole different topic.
Commercial tenants.
But meanwhile, I think we'll keep it short and sweet. And if you have any questions at all, please email, text, or join us on Facebook, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Yeah, and come to our group on Facebook. We'd love to have you. And that is facebook.com. Well, it's right here too. Facebook.com/groups/Women Creating Wealth Together. We also have a Facebook business page under that same name. And then our website's under that same name. We're just kind of keeping it all the same.
And
but we have a lot of great discussion in our Facebook group. So definitely join us. We'd love to have you over there, or email us at our emails here. And we'd just love to have you join in our conversation.
Yeah, it'd be really fun to have as more people join, and we could have a more diverse topic to discuss. So please do. All right.
Thanks, Sonia. This was a great conversation.
You.
All right. Take care.
All right. You too. Bye.